You ain't going nowhere, cutie.
The Simpsons is a show that's no stranger to controversy, and today on ScreenRant we're taking a look at 10 episodes that would probably be cancelled were they to be released today.
I have an early date.
I wasn't asking.
Let's start with one that's not controversial due to being outwardly offensive, but rather because the script so enraged fans on a story level that it's essentially been retconned out of existence. Of course, that episode is Season 9's The Principal and the Pauper. This entry notably reveals that Principal Skinner isn't actually who he claims to be, that his real name is Armin Tamzarian, and the real Seymour Skinner was a Vietnam veteran whose identity Armin stole when he believed him to be killed in combat. The plot twist did not sit well with Simpsons fans, and is made all the more egregious in how the town cruelly dispatches the real Seymour Skinner once they realize that they prefer the imposter. Many critics have suggested that this episode was the point at which the Simpsons truly jumped the shark, and it's easy to see why, since airing the incident has rarely been referenced, and the show has gone out of its way to portray Armin as the original Skinner. The Season 15 episode, Codependence Day, is not the most horrific controversial episode, but that doesn't stop it from being incredibly offensive in how it treats Marge's and Homer's relationship. The episode ironically begins with Bart and Lisa writing a letter to a thinly veiled version of George Lucas, telling him that his cosmic war movies may have lost their way. Many critics would say the same criticism could be leveled at The Simpsons, with Codependence Day a major point in favor of their argument. Near the middle of the episode, Homer and Marge both get incredibly drunk at Oktoberfest. Marge attempts to remain sober, but things get out of hand. While driving home, Homer overturns the car, and in order to avoid being arrested, he frames Marge by placing her in the driver's seat. This by itself is pretty unforgivable, but what makes it worse is the follow-through. Homer is rightfully called a monster by Moe, and Marge winds up going to a rehab clinic. While visiting her, Homer confesses his actions, and Marge is rightfully angry. But shortly after, she's convinced by her fellow rehab patients that she actually enjoys being with her husband more than she enjoys alcohol. It's a completely inexcusable action by Marge, seemingly just to end the episode and bring the series back to its status quo. The Season 14 episode, Strong Arms of the Maw, features Marge getting mugged behind the Quickie Mart. She's left traumatized by the situation and becomes unable to leave the house. Coincidentally, the family has just acquired Rainier Wolfcastle's old weightlifting set, and in her isolation, Marge becomes a fitness enthusiast. Eventually, she becomes incredibly buff, curing her agoraphobia at the midpoint, where she even runs into the guy who mugged her and beats him up. It seems like an inspiring enough episode, but then things take a dark turn. Marge winds up taking steroids to help her compete in bodybuilding, and in an incredibly uncomfortable moment, she sexually assaults Homer. The next day, Homer is in pain from the event, and from that point forward is made afraid of his wife, as is seemingly most of Springfield. Before Marge sees the error of her ways, however, at no point does she apologize for what she did to Homer. Additionally, the episode features Bart making himself up to look like Apu, something that might come off as culturally insensitive in the modern day. It also has multiple allusions to muscular women not being real women, which even for 2003 feels a bit behind the times. The Season 12 episode, Homer vs. Dignity, starts off with Bart witnessing a sexual act between Mr. Skinner and Mrs. Krabappel, but that's not what makes it offensive. In fact, you'd be forgiving for overlooking that little faux pas. This is one of a handful of episodes where Homer becomes Mr. Burns' personal assistant while Smithers is unavailable, and in this instance, he becomes Burns' prank monkey. He's forced to do some pretty awful stuff, but the pinnacle comes at the Springfield Zoo. As part of the multitude of pranks Homer's forced to go through, he dresses up like a female panda and is sexually assaulted by a real panda. It's pandemonium in the worst way possible, and might be the most uncomfortable moment in the series' history. Of course, all the episodes mentioned so far are still available for public consumption, be it through syndication, physical media, or streaming. That can't be said for our next pick, the Season 3 episode, Stark Raving Dad. Often TV series and movies will will get canceled just for whom they cast, and that's exactly what happened here. Due to Michael Jackson voicing the character Leon Kompowski, a psychiatric patient who believes himself to be Jackson. At the time of airing, the episode was positively received by critics, but after the 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland presented fresh allegations of child abuse against the singer, the episode was pulled from circulation. Showrunner Al Jean was quoted saying he believed Jackson had used the episode to groom young boys. With the episode tarnished in the eyes of its creators, it has become the one episode not available on the Disney Plus streaming service. While the episode wouldn't even be made today for numerous obvious reasons, it's worth mentioning as one of the few episodes to be legitimately canceled. Another episode to fall victim to censorship, albeit to a far lesser capacity, is Season 8's Homer versus the 18th Amendment. The episode starts off with a raucous St. Patrick's Day, complete with Irish stereotypes. However, it wasn't the Irish who took offense, but rather the British. In a brief moment you may have missed, a pub called John Bull's Fish and Chips is blown up. This is a reference to the fictional character John Bull, who essentially acts as a British version of Uncle Sam, and in turn represents a personification of the United Kingdom. By blowing it up, the episode makes a clear reference to the IRA and Irish terrorism, something the British didn't take kindly to and which wound up censored in that country. This shot has since been allowed back into the episode when airing overseas, but it's easy to see the same joke not landing well in today's turbulent political climate. Similarly, the premiere episode of Season 9, The City of New York versus Homer Simpson, is widely regarded as a classic of the series, even featuring the first appearance of Duffman. In it, Barney loses Homer's car in New York City, and so the Simpsons take a trip to the Big Apple. Turns out the car was left at the bottom of the World Trade Center, and contains a number of gags regarding the two buildings. At one point, Homer has to ascend to the top of the South Tower to reach the restroom, only for it to be closed, forcing him to use the one at the top of the North Tower. These jokes weren't considered to be in poor taste when the episode aired in 1997, but became retroactively uncomfortable after the events of September 11th, 2001. Up to 2006, the episode was pulled from syndication and has even been shown with some parts edited out. Obviously, if it were to be made today, much of the plot would have to be changed. The Season 13 episode Blame It on Lisa concerns the Simpsons going to Brazil after Lisa spends an outrageous amount of money to call an orphan she's been sponsoring. According to Brazilian critics of the episode, it features a host of cultural issues, including numerous inaccuracies concerning the use of the conga and macarena, and portrayal of Rio de Janeiro as consisting of crime-ridden, rat-infested slums. The episode received such a negative reaction that the tourist board for the city even threatened to sue Fox. Season 9's The Cartridge Family is another episode which received a strong critical reaction, but which caused backlash due to its themes of gun violence. After a football riot, Homer buys a gun to protect his family, much to Marge's chagrin. The misuse of a handgun wound up getting the episode partially banned on British TV. Finally, Season 10's 30 Minutes Over Tokyo made some waves in Japan, with its scene depicting the Emperor of Japan being thrown into a trunk full of sumo thongs. It has never aired in that country and is unavailable there even on Disney Plus. And those are our picks. What episodes do you think would be canceled today? Thank you for watching Screen Rant and stay tuned for more Simpsons news.